World War I was one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. Spanning over 4 years, the war altered the world permanently. It drastically changed the political landscape on a global scale and redefined the practices of war altogether. New technology was born and countries were either left in ruins or born into a new prosperity because of the conflict. But what would the world look like if this landmark event never occurred? In this mini-documentary, we'll explore the ins and outs of what made World War I important, and take a deeper look into its impact and answer the question, what if World War I never happened? Wars before World War I were treated as almost honorable. However, as World War I began, something changed, that being warfare itself. World War I brought with it trench warfare, a brutal form of combat where armies would dig trenches in the ground across from one another, and gain ground by charging over no man's land. The phrase "war is hell" became frequently prominent. As a direct result from World War I, wars were no longer gentlemanly. Instead, becoming a desperate, bleak landscape of bodies and barbed wire. If World War I never happened, neither would trench warfare, and would completely change how we fight wars today. Life in the trenches was terrible, with disease, rotting food, horrible sleep conditions, and constant gunfire and artillery barrages. Troops crossing no man's land would be gunned down by fully automatic machine guns like the Maxim gun, the first fully automatic gun, and other weapons like chlorine gas and artillery cannons like the French 520, which was 520 millimeters in diameter, a massive increase in size than in the past, all developed specifically for World War I. Without World War I, military technologies would not have advanced as quickly as they did. Guns wouldn't have been fully automatic yet, chemical warfare would never happen, and artillery weapons would not look like they do today. However, no technology advanced as much as vehicles did in World War I. From the invention of tanks to the weaponization of aircrafts, World War I created a way for vehicles to thrive on the battlefield. The first mass-produced tank used on the battlefield was the British Mark I, used for its ability to easily traverse trenches. Soon after, the French made a tank with the first rotation turret, called the Renault FT Light. Tanks were invented directly because of World War I and its trench warfare, and without it, tanks would be notably absent from the world, because there would be no need for their unique mobility. Standing right beside tanks in the most advanced technologies during World War I was the aircraft. Because of World War I, aircraft saw a major increase in development. Planes were augmented to make them more suitable for warfare. The Vickers FB-5 was the first plane used in war with a machine gun attached to the front of the plane. Directly before World War I, armies started adding bombing capabilities to planes, the first being the Bristol TB-8, a British biplane. However, no plane was as prominent as the Sopwith Camel, a French biplane responsible for downing 1,294 other biplanes throughout the war. The plane used over-wing Lewis guns, along with increased mobility to gun down other planes. Although planes were heavily advanced in World War I, the planes would most likely have seen the same rapid development regardless of whether the war started or not. World War I not only changed the technologies of war, but the global landscape itself, with major changes in politics and power. Entire countries fell, such as Austria-Hungary, a once powerful monarchy, collapsed after World War I ended. The country split into several smaller countries, including Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Poland, and Hungary later. After World War I ended, Austria-Hungary lost the power to be a sovereign state. However, without the power lost because of the war, Austria-Hungary would most likely exist today. Another nation that was directly affected by World War I was Germany, more specifically with the Treaty of Versailles. This doctrine that was enacted when Germany lost the war severely cut down Germany's power, including reducing the land owned by Germany, restricting Germany's army, and forcing Germany to pay an exorbitant amount of money to the winners of the war. This was one of the main reasons that Germany wanted to go to war for a second time, and a huge reason as to why Hitler would eventually come into power in the following years. Without the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler would have never had the chance to come to power, and World War II would have never happened. However, the biggest thing to come out of World War I wasn't any nations rising or falling, or the technologies developed because of the war, but the unity of several different nations in the League of Nations. The League of Nations was an international organization consisting of several different governments, all formed for the purpose of resolving international disputes. Consisting of 63 different countries, The League of Nations did not last long. However, the impact it had on the world cannot be underestimated. Without the League of Nations, there would never be any blueprints for the United Nations. There wouldn't be any international organization for peacekeeping, as there would be no reason for governments to unite, leaving a noticeable hole in the new world. Without World War I, the world looks very different than it does today. Our military technologies would be less refined, we wouldn't have tanks, some nations wouldn't exist, and some would still exist to this day. World War II would have never happened, and there would be no reason for any form of a United Nations. Now I ask you, how do you think this new world would look today?